Welcome everyone to our first ever Facebook Live video, Flight Radar 24. We are inside a Cathay Pacific 747-8 freighter, better known as Hong Kong Trader. You'll see the livery on the outside and we'll post some pictures later on. But right now we're inside taking an in-depth tour with a lot of great stuff. Inside the airplane we're going to start in the cargo deck with Mark Such, who's the Director of Cargo Operations here at Cathay Pacific. Then we're going to go upstairs, we're going to see the crew rest, then we're going to see the flight deck. So let's start with where are we and what is going on with the floor.
Okay, Ian, well where we are at the moment is on the main deck of the Dash 8 freighter. It's about 250 feet long, which we'll show a little bit later. And this is where we store most of the cargo. There is also a cargo deck below the aircraft. But here we can do 34 pallet positions, below 12 pallet positions in 2 containers.
So on a passenger plane, this would be where the seats are, and then below the deck would be where the cargo normally is.
Absolutely. On the passenger Dash 8 you have the seats here, plus don't forget you've got an upstairs section on the 747 as well. So absolutely, the below cargo deck is exactly the same on the passenger aircraft.
Okay, great. So we're standing right near the aft cargo door, which is not on a passenger plane. And so, can you explain what the aft cargo door, how it operates, and how it makes cargo loading a little bit easier?
Okay, well basically, Ian, we've actually got 2 cargo doors on the Dash 8 freighter. We have the main rear cargo door, as you mentioned, and later on we'll see the nose cargo door. Most of the time, for regular cargo, we're going to be using this door here. So if we come to the edge, obviously the cargo will come up from the ground on what we call a high loader. So the containers or the pallets will come up there. It'll come to the edge. And just here, you'll see we've got controls for a power drive unit. Now, the entire aircraft is mechanized in terms of loading. So the cargo will come into the aircraft through a mechanism here. As you can see, we're turning now some power drive units. If we go forward, come back to this one, there we go. These are mechanized. When cargo is on, these will lift up. These will lift up when a sensor will feel, and the cargo will then be in touch with the wheel, and we can drive it forward into the aircraft. As I said, the entire cargo system on the Dash 8 is motorized all the way to the front.
So when you load cargo, do you normally use the aft cargo door, or do you always use the nose cargo door, or does it make a difference what type of freight you've got?
Okay, well for Cathay Pacific, we traditionally use the rear cargo door if we're dealing with normal gauge cargo. However, as a major cargo operator, we do a lot of what we call outer gauge stuff, and we use the nose cargo door. I'm talking things like drill bits for oil and gas, or if we're loading, sometimes if we're loading big horse boxes, we can come in through the nose.
So how much can you carry?
Okay, well Cathay's Dash 8 freighter, we have a payload maximum 135 tons, but of course it's going to depend on the range you're operating to. So maximum payload we can get 135 tons. What's quite interesting is that depending on the volume of your cargo and the density of the cargo, sometimes you'll volume out before your weight out. So it's not uncommon that we'll only get 80 tons on an aircraft, but the aircraft will be full. Because physically the cargo is not dense, it's quite volumetric.
So what are some of the more unusual things that you've carried in either this airplane or across the fleet?
Okay, look, Ian, we carry absolutely everything. Let's start with what we usually carry. There are a lot of electronics. We're based in Hong Kong. We take a lot of electronics, Apple products, HP products, you name it. We transport those all over the world. Unusual stuff. The biggest piece we've ever carried has been a bit of oil and gas equipment out of Houston. In fact, it's the biggest piece ever carried on a Boeing aircraft. It was one piece, 60 tons, and that was carried from Houston via Anchorage, and final destination was Korea. However, we're also carrying everything from perishables. Pharmaceutical products, we have the ability to maintain ambient temperature in the aircraft. Live animals, we have a very strict sustainable policy, but of course we do carry a lot of horses that are used for horse racing. Recently, about a year ago, we carried a rare rhinoceros species on a breeding program from Cincinnati Zoo. Flew actually out of Rickenbacker. We flew to Indonesia, where we took part in a breeding program for the worldwide wildlife fund. So great stuff, yeah.
So cargo comes in either this door and moves through, or we also have what I think is the most exciting for everyone, is the nose cargo door.
Yeah, the nose cargo.
So why don't we go take a look at the nose cargo door?
And interestingly, as I told you, you be careful out on the rollover. This is where the cargo is going to be sliding up and down on these pallets. As you can see, they're all rolling. And what we have here is a lock. And this lock will bring the pallet position, bring the pallet into the locking position. So the pallet comes in, and then you pull up the lock and you lock it in. And every time that an aircraft departs, the pilots will come through to ensure that all pallets are very well locked. Because the last thing you want on a big freighter aircraft is load shift. That will often change the center of gravity of the aircraft. It's very important. The aircraft is 250 feet long.
So we're walking past what look to be kind of smaller cargo loads at each station.
They give their individual local drive units, so that the cargo load master is coming out. He has the ability to control the aircraft throughout different stages, and that's what those are there.
So how long does it take, say you've got a full container load, how long would it take to load the aircraft?
If we're going to do a full offload and then full onload, we usually try and give ourselves a minimum of 1.5 hours. That's really quite fast. Usually when we're doing an onload and an offload, we'll give ourselves a 2-hour ground time to give ourselves a window. The problem is when you're dealing with, what we call the big and the ugly, the big oil bits or the outer gauge cargo, we usually request extra ground time because obviously there's going to be special loading instructions for that.
So we're coming up on the front of the aircraft, and it's getting a little bit loud because we can kind of pan out and show that we're not the only aircraft here today. We're at EAA AirVenture, better known as Oshkosh, and it's one of the world's largest aviation celebrations. And we're on this particular aircraft, which is here because Boeing is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. So there are a bunch of Boeing aircraft here. You can see a KC-135 directly in front of us. There's GoGo 737-500 right there, and there are a number of aircraft in front of us, to the side of us, and behind us. We'll have more a little bit later on that. But right now what I want to show you is the cargo nose door. Yep. So maybe Mark can talk a little bit about how the nose door operates and how long does it take to open and close the door?
Well, probably later we'll be able to show. I'm not sure whether we have time right now, but usually it only takes a couple of minutes. It's power driven, so it's just controlled from here, and the nose door opens. The thing about nose door, it's very much a unique product of the Boeing 747, okay? Boeing make great aircraft, we know. The other one, freighter they make is a 777, that doesn't have a nose door. It's just a rear cargo door, as we've seen. So for a nose door, you have the ability to really load extra long pieces of cargo. You can see the length of the aircraft there. Essentially, you can have 4 or 5 loaders there with something that's, as long as it's less than 250 feet, it's going to fit in this aircraft. And that's really a feature of this getting a bit noisy, huh?
We've seen the cargo deck, so now we're going to go upstairs and see the crew rest and the flight deck, which I know a lot of you are very interested in. So let's head up what is a very steep ladder, and we'll do that very carefully. And we'll meet Captain Marcoux, who's going to take us upstairs and tell us a little bit more about flying the aircraft.
Hi Ian, come on, welcome aboard. Let's climb up the
Sure.
ladder.
So Mark, we're upstairs now on the top deck of the Boeing 747, and I'm seeing what looks to be some nice recliner seats. Where are we?
We're on the upper deck of the freighter, and it's designed, it's the home away from home for the pilots when we use some very long flights on this aircraft. It's got enormous range capability, plus it goes all over the world, and we carry supplementary crew because we have some long flights, so there's normally more than 2 pilots on board. So we've got an upper deck here. There's 6 recliner chairs, they're leather chairs, and they recline fully. It's a bit like a business class seat rests down the bottom, and there's 6 of those here on the upper deck. On the side wall over there you'll see they've got power, so that for recharging things like their laptops or their iPads or tablet devices. So it's fully fitted out up here. Also, because the upper deck is so critical on a freighter, you can see some of these grills which some of the people always ask us. That's just to vent the upper deck to the lower deck, and some of the safety features that people don't appreciate. and they're hidden on the passenger aircraft, but they're all still there. That ventilates the upper deck to the lower deck
Interesting.
in the event of a decompression or something like that.
Ah, interesting. So, we've seen the crew rest area. How about we take a look at the flight deck?
Well, we haven't finished all the crew
Oh,
rest.
there's more crew rest.
There's more crew rest. We've got the ability, it's what we call the stateroom for the freighter pilot. If you'd like to come this way, have a look in there. This is the...
So this is what you would call the actual crew rest. We've got a full bunk in here.
There's a complete bunk. They're all environmentally controlled. They've got their own temperature reading lights. There's contact still from the flight deck. So each crew member has, it's really well fitted out, as you can see on these freighter aircraft. And they've got their own room here to sleep in flight, so they get a really good rest. You see there's another one on the other side.
So Mark downstairs mentioned that, say a normal flight would be Hong Kong, Anchorage, somewhere in the United States. How many crew would you bring with you?
That'd be a crew of 3, so there'd be 2 on duty on the flight deck all the time, and there'd be 1 resting.
Interesting.
Slide back through here. And of course, being a freighter, as you walk through here, you've got their own galley system as well. So that's the galley you can see on the left. We've got chillers, food storage, waste disposal, steam oven, coffee makers, hot water. It's a full galley system as well.
And everything is very carefully labeled. In case anyone was wondering what that was.
That's just a fact. Put the menu. And of course everything has to be locked. That's why you can see all the double latches people ask down there. So that we close it, but we can also latch it so that it doesn't come loose in flight. And then inside is all sorts of different storage compartments. And then it's a narrow galley, but you can have a look. There's all sorts of emergency equipment, life rafts for the crew on the right hand side as we move up. And because we're on the upper deck, you can sneak round to the right there. You will also see that's an emergency escape slide. There's emergency equipment on your left, and if you really peeked around the corner, you could even see emergency locator beacons hide up there on the wall.
So these orange devices are the emergency locator beacons.
They're locator beacons.
Very interesting.
And there's a fully functioning toilet here on the left behind you. I'll just slide that just so that you can see.
And that looks like a normal airplane toilet.
Just an off. And then the exciting part, that's the flight deck, if you'd like to move in there.
And now we're onto the flight deck. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this.
And introduces all the changes brought about by the 747-8. So it's effectively what was the old 400 and very well-known Boeing design, but they introduced really what we've shoehorned into this aircraft is all the avionics of the next generation aircraft like the 787. You can see there on the displays, the primary flight display on the left, the navigation display on the right there. It's in a mode that has a vertical situation display, which you see on the more modern aircraft, vertical profile. But also we have high definition taxi charts. The aircraft has electronic checklists. I can show you those.
So right now we're going to be looking at electronic checklists.
So there's the electronic checklist. It's all interactive for the aircraft. So that's when the crew get on board. That's the pre-flight checklist will come up and start for them. The overhead display's been slightly simplified. There's some new controls on the Dash 8, but it's all been blended in well with the existing. So it's a seamless transition for the pilots who go from the 400 to the Dash 8.
So
new engines, new wing. Add to the advantages and the efficiency of this aircraft.
We've gotten a lot of questions about what it's like to fly the airplane.
This aircraft, it's really like a 400, just nicer. It's just all the new improvement. It's got fly-by-wire wing, so the flight controls have really been well harmonised. It flies very smoothly. It's very responsive. And the new engines, of course, just add that extra degree of efficiency to the whole operation. It's a terrific airplane.
One of the questions we just got is the electronic flight checklist much better than the paper checklists?
Much, much better. And it's also checking you as you way. It's interactive. It's sensing the aircraft system. So a lot of them, when you move the switch, the checklist actions itself because it senses that the control or the switch is in that position and it confirms that it's been done. Where in the past we pulled out a piece of paper, we had to look that the switch was in the right position and say it was checked or confirmed or closed or whatever the case may be. So it's a safety enhancement, it's cleaner, it's quicker and more efficient.
So one of the questions we just got is, why is there a sunroof? So can you explain what we're looking at here?
Well, we're looking at, on the jumbo, particularly the freighter, this is an emergency escape hatch. It's on every 747. But what it enables us to do is, if we couldn't get to the lower deck on a passenger aircraft or on the freighter, we've got the upper deck escape slide, which you had a look at a minute ago, and then our secondary means of escape is to go out through the roof. And it's a long way to the ground, so we've got emergency escape harnesses, and that's what's up in that box up there if you have a look. They're inertia reels, and so we take one of those each, and as you climb out, you hang on to that, and it will lower you to the ground at a controlled rate.
Interesting. How does the airplane handle differently if it's full versus if it's empty? I know you flew up from Chicago O'Hare to Oshkosh today, almost completely empty.
Very, very lightweight, yeah. It's there's a little bit of a difference, but we see that difference every day because the aircraft, the 747, operates over such a massive weight range. You know, we have over 100 tons regularly, which is more than the maximum takeoff weight of most other aircraft. So the controls have been adjusted, and they compensate for a lot of those differences. So to the pilot, it's almost seamless, other than the speeds at which we fly it. Obviously, when we're lighter, we're much lower speeds than when we're very heavy.
So can you explain a little bit more about that? Why is the difference in speed because of the weight?
Simply, the wing has to generate lift, and when we're heavier, we need more lift, so we have to fly a bit faster to generate that lift.
Interesting.
It's really simple.
So we're in the flight deck, and the front cargo door is open. So I'm not sure if you can see what we're looking at, but we're seeing the nose of the cargo door from the flight deck still open. And how high off the ground are we?
We're sitting about 60 feet up here off the ground. So it's several floors up in a building, and you can look out and you can see the traditional aircraft. There's a 737 there. We're sitting, it was interesting, we all commented when we pulled the aircraft up today, and we're behind the old 707, or it's the KC-135 in front of us there today. And at window height, we're probably about a foot below the top of the tailplane of the KC-135 in front of us, which we probably all would have guessed that wrong, because we've never been that close behind the KC-135. In this aircraft anyway. We don't need to refuel the 747. But you can look outside, you can see all the other aircraft and just how far down. And it's a testament to this aircraft that the pilots and the height judgment is so super.
So that's the other question we've gotten is, you're so high up when you touch down. What's the compensation like for...
Well, that's just like learning any aircraft. If you're in a very small, light aircraft, you're much lower than the ground, and as you fly a bigger aircraft, you get a little bit further off the ground. So there is a transition, but that's just the normal learning process. This aircraft's also very good. It has a radio altimeter, and then instead of on the old jumbos where we had to look down the runway basically and eyeball it, the radio altimeter gives us a call out from the last 50 feet, just as a little bit of extra guidance.
So is there anything else that is unique about the 747 flight deck, or the Dash 8 flight deck in particular, besides the electronic checklists and some of the glass displays?
And a lot of it's been hidden behind the scenes. We've got even the air conditioning packs on this aircraft are completely different to the previous version of the Jumbo. If you have a quick look up here for those that are interested, we've got engine control units, we've got our inertial navigation, nav system controllers, and we've got some electrics and hydraulics, and there's one control system for each engine there, which you should be able to get into the picture. And the hydraulics and the electrics, the redundancy on the aircraft is phenomenal. If you're looking at this switch here, for example, you've got an electrical driven pump, hydraulic pump, you've got an engine driven pump, and you've got air driven pumps, so you've got enormous redundancy. As we move across the panel, we've got fire switches. This is to shut the engines down and deploy fire extinguishing into the engines. Below that are the start switches, and then the fuel panel below that. And then further towards the front, we've got some icing controls. We've got to be able to de-ice in severe weather the engines and the wing. As we move down the other side, we've got some oxygen, some flight control systems. And the one thing that's really different about this aircraft to the passenger aircraft is in the air conditioning. And when you were talking to Mark a few minutes ago, he mentioned how we control the different temperatures on the main deck. But one of the things that's unique to the freighter is that every single cargo compartment we can control the temperature effectively from about 4 degrees Celsius through to 28 degrees in a refrigerated environment. So it's properly conditioned air, and that's what all those switches there you can see from the air conditioning system. There's all the different main deck controllers and lower loads, even the lower deck, which on a passenger aircraft where your baggage normally goes, we can put and activate temperature controllers in there, carry pharmaceuticals, and set the temperature very accurately for long-range shipments of them. So that's unique to the freighter. And then the last bit below that is the rest of the air conditioning system, just turning the major components on. The flight displays, a lot of it's been integrated into the systems. There was knobs for selecting lots of things. It's all integrated now. The used to have really big gear selector handles. There's small electronic selectors now. The flight management computers have been upgraded. Their memory has been significantly increased, so we carry all the new navigation database. It's got a complete global database in this aircraft. And simplification in the center panel there. It's an automatic radar on this aircraft. The radios are just really the next generation. They still do the same thing, VHF, HF, satellite communications. We've got everything on this aircraft. They're just in a simpler and more modern format and easier to use.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
We've had a wonderful tour of the cargo decks and the flight deck upstairs on Cathay Pacific's Hong Kong Trader, Boeing 747-8. We'll leave you with a little bit of the flight deck and the panels. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you've enjoyed the tour, and we hope to do more of these in the future. So, thanks very much. Bye-bye.